What useful safety advice do you have for us?
Well, the first thing I'd like to say is Sheppey are fairly unique. There's a handful of teams throughout the UK, and there are about in the region of about 350 Coast Guard rescue teams throughout the land, and we're fairly unique insofar as we actually do but not only the search type activities, but we also do cliff rescue and mud rescue. And of course, you've seen all the floods being going on in Cumbria recently, in the few recent days. We've had a lot of rain recently, and although the dangers of getting too close to the edge of a cliff might seem obvious, Coast Guard rescue teams such as ourselves are nevertheless regularly summoned to the aid of persons or animals who have fallen and are often injured. And basically we're actually trained and equipped to extricate the casualty as safely as possible for medical treatment. So my first safety advice is keep away from the cliff edges. They're likely to be very soft, they're likely to collapse, and obviously, as I'll show you the incidents this over the last couple of months, we've had a couple of those incidents where people have fallen off the cliff. Again, mud rescue we undertake, and the perils of soft mud and quicksands around Sheppey may be less obvious to the unwary, but can be just as deadly. And we, again, as a local Coast Guard rescue team, have specialised equipment and training for freeing casualties and bringing them safe to firm ground. So the first message today in terms of safety is certainly about keeping away from mud and keeping away from cliff edges. And this is being supported recently by an advertising campaign on the TV, where people, you probably may have seen the 30-second commercial where it gets over certain messages about inflatables, and one of the messages is about dangers of cliff, and the other one is obviously in terms of safety advice. Now it's the season for laying up your vessels, and without going into great detail, there are regular checklists you can actually get and download for laying up your vessels in terms of how you fuel it, the sails and rigging, the electrical bits, the batteries, the engine, the emergency equipment, things like that. There's a whole range of procedures you can go through to ensure that when you fit it out in the spring, we're not going to have too many problems in terms of the operation of that vessel.
So, Ian, what incidents have the Coast Guard covered since you were last on air with us?
Well, I was last on air, I think, towards the end of August.
Yeah.
So I'll kick off in September, Wednesday the 2nd of September. 5 o'clock in the afternoon, we were tasked by Thames Coast Guard to a speedboat which had run aground off the Nore Marsh, which is just directly off here, Daniel. Yeah. And the Sheerness inshore lifeboat was unable to refloat the craft or get so close to it sufficiently to remove the 4 occupants to safely. So the rescue helicopter 125 from Wattisham, RAF Wattisham, was tasked to the scene, and on arrival the helicopter transferred the owner and 3 children to safety at the Riverside Country Park. The casualties were then transferred to Gillingham Marina by the North Kent sector manager, and they were all okay, so they were all rescued. Thursday the 3rd at 6 o'clock in the evening, paged by Thames to attend at East Church Gap, where a 12-year-old youth had fallen down the cliff. Remember what I was saying earlier on about the dangers of cliffs, and has suffered what was suspected to be a broken ankle. On arrival, the Sheppey Coastguards made their way down the cliff to the scene, where it was decided to evacuate the casualty by helicopter to Southend Hospital. So Rescue 125 was again scrambled, and the youth, together with his mother, were airlifted to hospital. We don't know any further details on that individual, but clearly that was a successful outcome. On Friday the 4th, again in the evening, sort of early evening, we were asked to attend the all-tide landing at Queenborough to meet and greet a yacht, Esprit, which had been assisted by the Sheerness lifeboat after both crew members had fallen overboard and had been unable to regain their craft. Not sure why both crew members fell overboard, but certainly they required rescuing. On Sunday the 6th in the afternoon, we were asked to attend Minster Leys following a report of jet skis causing disturbance amongst swimmers. On arrival, we spoke with the jet ski users, or personal watercraft users as we call them, and reminded them of the bylaws in force and the consequences of not observing them. And after observing them for about 30 minutes, basically, we had to have a word again, during which during which time one of the PC users was spoken to for a second time, and we said about it, this was getting a little bit dangerous, and following further discussions the situation eased, and after further observation we were satisfied that the bylaws were now being observed correctly and that swimmers no longer in danger. On Tuesday the 8th in the afternoon, we were asked to attend Minster Leas, where again jet skis were reported causing a nuisance to swimmers. The jet ski users were basically addressed by the Coast Guard and reminded of the bylaws and the consequences of not observing again. And they found that they were behaving themselves in accordance with the bylaws. In essence, there is an area where they can actually go out from Minster Leas, and providing they keep out and away from the swimmers,
right,
they're okay. But what happens is they have a tendency to come inshore, and they cause a disturbance to the swimmers. And if one of those hits a swimmer, there's going to be a serious head injury, serious accident could occur. On Friday the 11th at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we were asked to search for a missing kite surfer at Barton's Point in Minster. At Barton's Point. On arrival at Barton's Point, we were approached by a kite surfer who acknowledged that he was the person reported to be missing. He told the Coast Guard that he enjoyed his sailing so much he had gone further than he intended, but had never been in danger, and he was astonished to find someone reported him missing, but he apologised for any concern he had caused. Tuesday the 15th, tasked to the Riverside Country Park to assist with the recovery of 2 persons in the mud. Again, dangers of mud exercise. And on the Sunday the 20th, which I'll leave it right now, we were asked to attend Central Beach at Laysdown, where a 14-foot dinghy was reported to have been washed up. But when we got there, and following a brief search of the area, it was ascertained that the dinghy was in the ownership of nearby campers, and no situation of distress really existed, and basically we were stood down. But on the way back to the station, we were asked to attend Queenborough following a Mayday call which had reported a craft in trouble northwest of Queenborough Harbour, and following a detailed search of the area, Sheppey Coastguard and the Sheerlaugh boat found nothing untowards, and so we were stood down.